Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. A lot to talk about again this week. Obviously, Phyrexia All-Be-One continues to impact a lot of card prices in the secondary market. You're going to see that throughout the video today. But there's other things happening too. More and more, we are seeing actual paper gameplay impacting card prices. And I do think that's healthy for the market in general, so hopefully we'll continue to see more of that going forward. Quickly before we get into the details though, just a couple things. First, I want to say thank you to 3 viewers that gave super thanks tips for last weekend's video. David Howell, Sehanine Moonbow, and Thomas Wright. All 3 of you have been longtime supporters of the channel, and I really appreciate all the support you've given in so many different ways. Comments, likes, subscribing, being part of the community here, and of course the super thanks tips are also very appreciated. Thank you again to all of you. And one other thing, if you go over to FlipsideGaming.com, you can use the Heroes promo code to save 10% on orders over $10. Currently, you can pre-order March of the Machine products there. They also have a whole lot of other things on their website. Remember, if your order's over $100 or consists only of singles, shipping will be free in the United States. Also, whenever you use the Heroes promo code, it does support the channel, which is always appreciated. So thank you. And without any further ado, let's get into it. We'll begin with the Standard Legal Spotlight. This is where we look at the Standard Legal cards moving up the most this week. Again, our threshold is $2 in the video, so we're not going to talk about anything unless it's moving up at least $2 today. And there is only one card in this section, so let's see what it is. Sheoldred the Apocalypse. This is up 366 this week to 73.10. This continues to see a lot of play in a lot of places. Standard, it's in Grixis midrange and much more in that format. Pioneer, it's in Rakdos midrange and much more there too. In Modern, sometimes this is in Yawgmoth. Legacy Doomsday builds are running it. It's in Vintage Doomsday too many times as well. And it's even getting some additional Commander play now and some retooled Drechsler Praetor's voice decks. Those have been seeing more play because of the support they receive from Phyrexia All-Be-One. And this is in new Commander decks too around cards from that set, like a Drechsler Grand Unifier, for example. And that quickly brings us to the Pioneer Legal Spotlight. 3 cards in this section this time. Let's see what they are. Fiend Artisan is the first one, of 220 to 1163. This has been seeing Commander play in a variety of decks, but recently Aspiring Spike featured this card in 2 Modern builds that both ran 4 copies in the main. One was a Jund Sacrifice deck using this along with Tyvar Jubilant Brawler from Phyrexia All-Be-One, and the second one was a Tyvar Goblin build. Andrea Mengucci also played the Jund Sacrifice build after Aspiring Spike introduced it. Looks like Tyvar and Fiend Artisan are beginning to make an impact on Modern. Additionally, there's a Legacy Abzan Shadow build running 4 copies of this in the main, and that is worth keeping an eye on, especially since that format has just been shaken up by some recent bannings. Expressive Iteration and White Plume Adventurer have both been banned now in Legacy. The Planar Chaos copy of Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, the original, is up 241 to 45.96. This is another highly played card. You see this in Rakdos midrange and Pioneer and more decks there. Modern Yawgmoth sometimes uses this, and it's also in other decks in that format. Legacy, it's in Mono Black Combo. This also is getting additional Commander play now thanks to Phyrexia All-Be-One. You see this in Drechsler Praetor's Voice and Grand Unifier builds. This is also in Karo Monix the Rat King decks. And it's a good upgrade to the Corrupting Influence Commander deck, and in fresh builds around Ixal's Sign of Atraxa from there. And the last card in this section today is the Chain Veil, the copy from the list. Goes up 403 this week to 39.11. It is in the sideboard of the very popular Pioneer Nykthos ramp deck, but it also gets a lot of Commander play too. Many times you see this in Atraxa Praetor's Voice, and it's in builds around new cards from Phyrexia All-Be-One as well. Things like Tekuthal Inquiry Dominus and Azuri Stalker of Spheres. Also, recently we learned that Commander Masters is coming later this year, and one of the Commander decks released with that product is called Planeswalker Party, so if this is not reprinted there or somewhere else between now and then, this could see some more growth. And that takes us to the Modern Legal Spotlight. Quite a few cards to look at in this section, so let's just jump in. First we have Oboro, Palace in the Clouds. This is up 218 this week to 59.99, and it is rebounding after some recent losses. There is only one printing of this card, remember. It is found in Modern Mail, and it also gets a little Commander play in a variety of decks. Contagion Engine, the Scars of Mirrodin copy, is up 229 this week to 22.50. This has been pushed recently by Phyrexia All-Be-One. It is a solid commander card and combo enabler in several builds, like a Drechsler Praetor's Voice. It's also showing up in a ton of new commander decks around cards from Phyrexia LB1, including Tekuthal and Query Dominus again. And yes, this is a good upgrade to the Corrupting Influence deck, and it's in fresh builds around Ixal Scion of Atraxa and Vishgraz the Doom Hive from there. Windswept Teeth from Onslaught. This original copy is up 238 this week to 59.85. This is the first of 2 original Onslaught fetch lands that are rebounding after some recent losses on the list today. And yeah, it's a fetch land, so you know it sees a ton of play in a lot of different decks in multiple formats like Modern, Legacy, and Commander. Gemstone Caverns, this is the one from the list. It goes up 256 this week to $58. This card continues to see more Modern play. It's in Crashing Footfalls and a lot of other decks there. You also see this at times in Vintage Mono White Initiative sideboards, and it's in a variety of Commander decks too. Elesh Norn Grand Cenobite, the mystery booster copy is up 205 to 43.84. The new Phyrexia copy is up 261 to 51.97. This has been a popular commander and in the 99 of many builds, including Atraxa Praetor's Voice and Grand Unifier. As you might have guessed, this is showing up in other new commander builds too, around several cards from Phyrexia LB1, including Elesh Norn Mother of Machines. It is also another good upgrade to Corrupting Influence, and it's in new builds around Ixal and Vishgraz from there. Here's that second Onslaught fetch land, Bloodstained Mire. It goes up 316 this week to $78. And like I said a moment ago about Windswept Teeth, this also lost some value recently and has been rebounding. It is part of the mana base of many Modern, Legacy, and Commander builds. In fact, it's in the new version of the Modern Goryo's Vengeance deck, which we're going to be talking more about in just a moment. Next we have Avacyn, Angel of Hope. The double Masters copy is up 204 to 53.30. The iconic Masters copy is up 345 to 54.67. This does see a lot of commander play in many builds, including Kalia of the Vast. Sometimes you do see this in Atraxa Grand Unifier decks now too. And interestingly enough, this was discussed on an episode of the Command Zone podcast this week, which was about commander staples that are not worth their price. Even though that sounds negative, a lot of the cards that they discussed are still really good cards, and they are jumping up this week, so I do think that could have brought some more attention to them. And here's another card that was discussed in that video, Doubling Season. The Battle Bond copy is up 350 to 93.50. The Modern Masters copy is up 481 to 96.84. It is a very popular commander card in lots of builds like Atraxa Praetor's Voice and Vorinclex Monstrous Raider, for example. It's also in some builds around new cards as well, like Urtet Remnant of Memnarch. Giver of Ruins. Now this is the copy from the list that's jumping up 536 this week to 27.30. However, that is mostly because this particular copy is very dry online this week, and the price is inflated compared to other copies, even the premium ones right now. I do expect this to stabilize down as this particular version gets more copies back into the marketplace. However, I do think this is also an indicator that the card's seeing more play, which means other copies could be increasing in value in the future, something to keep an eye on. This is in the popular Modern Hammer Time deck and more in that format. This is also getting increased commander play now in Elesh Norn Mother of Machines and Skrelv Defector Might decks. And the last card in this section is Goryo's Vengeance. The Ultimate Masters copy is up 1209 to 1718. The Betrayers of Kamigawa copy is up 2380 to 2999. Well, like I alluded to a moment ago, modern Goryo's Vengeance decks are performing very well now thanks to a new card, Atraxa Grand Unifier. Turns out that's a great card to reanimate or cheat into play. Some of those decks also run through the breach out of the sideboard. In fact, Andrea Mengucci played one of these decks recently. Last weekend, the deck won a Modern Challenge at MTGO. It is getting a lot of attention. Beyond that, Goryo's Vengeance also does get a tad bit of commander play, but Modern is really the key driver here this week. And if you're wondering what's happening with premium copies of this card, well, yeah, they're moving up aggressively too. Let's take a look. Now, the Ultimate Masters regular foil copy is lagging behind the others quite a bit right now, but I'm sure it's going to go up quickly, maybe even by the time you watch this video. Right now, though, it's up $16 to $23.30. The Ultimate Masters box topper foil is up $50.88 to $68.95, and the Betrayers of Kamigawa foil is up $82.74 to $121.46. It is time for my favorite part of the video, the Eternal Spotlight, which, as you know, is our salute to all Eternal formats, but mostly Commander. Now, obviously, all the cards in the section won't be legal in all Eternal formats, but I'll tell you where they're not legal: Standard, Pioneer, and Modern. Oran Frostfang, this is the one from Commander 2019. This time it's up 206 to 2880. Another good upgrade to Corrupting Influence, and it's in fresh builds around Vishgraz, the Doom Hive. This was also in a partner deck with Lae'zel Vlaakith's Champion and Master Chef on game nights this week, which could have brought a little more attention to it. It's been a little while, but your own personal tutor is back, up 212 this week to 87.55. It is an older card yet to be reprinted. You do see this in Legacy Doomsday, and it also gets a little commander play in some different decks. Norn's Decree is up 214 this week to $4.08. This is in the Phyrexia All-Be-One Corrupting Influence commander deck. Of course, it does see playing builds around Ixal and Vishgraz from there, but because there's so much focus on poison counters at the commander table thanks to Phyrexia All-Be-One, you just are seeing this card in a lot of different builds right now, old and new in the format. Builds like Atraxa Praetor's Voice and Grand Unifier, for example. Shallow Grave is up 216 this week to 38.77. I am seeing some players trying this out in Legacy Reanimation decks with Atraxa Grand Unifier. We'll have to see if this card sticks around in those builds, but since it is a reserve list card, there are people speccing on it just in case. This also gets a little commander play, but that's again not really the key driver this time. Mind Over Matter up 220 this week to 39.94. We have been seeing some reserve list cards bounce back after recent losses. That's what's happening in this example here. Many of them lost value over the course of the last half of 2022 and even the beginning of 2023. When it comes to gameplay, this does see a little commander play, but this might be the start of a buyout, something to keep an eye on. Haunted One. This is the foil copy that comes with the Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate Mind Flayer's commander deck. It goes up 222 this week to $7. It is now seeing additional commander play around a card from Phyrexia All-Be-One, Karumanix the Rat King. Mox Opal. The Scars of Mirrodin copy is up 242 this week to 86.09. The Modern Masters 2015 copy is up 253 to 82.88. This is getting a little more attention in Legacy now because it is in the new blue 8-cast version of Painter. That deck is performing well on MTGO and gaining popularity, but of course you see this in other Legacy decks too. In Vintage, it's in Paradoxical Outcome, and it is a very popular commander card too. You see this in many builds, including some new ones like Urtat Remnant of Memnarch and Chisgoria Forged Tyrant. And this was in that Command Zone podcast video about commander staples that are not worth their price this week too. Additionally, you saw this in a traditional 8-cast build on a Legacy gameplay episode of Tolarian Community College this week, piloted by Andrea Mengucci. Soldevi Excavations. This is up 281 this week to 19.99. Here's another reserve list card that lost a fair amount of value, but this week moves up again. In some cases, Alliances cards in particular have been heating up recently, so this could again be the start of a targeted buyout perhaps. Something to watch anyway. As far as gameplay goes, it does get a little commander play. Woolly Mammoths. Okay, this is the Cold Snap theme deck printing of the card found in the Auroch Stampede pre-constructed deck. I always thought the reprints in these precons were pretty cool, and this particular one dried up online this week. It goes up $2.84 to $5. Now, again, this jump is really due to scarcity and high asking prices more than anything. I don't think anyone's really paying $5 for the card. The Ice Age copy is stable this week, and when it comes to gameplay, it doesn't really see much to speak of. Demonic Tutor, 3 copies jumping this week. Dual Decks Divine vs. Demonic is up 260 to 47.98. The Dual Decks Anthology copy is up 272 to 51.49. And the Mystery Booster copy is up 290 to 44.17. We have been seeing many different printings of this getting hot recently. It is in Vintage Paradoxical Outcome and much more. And this is another huge commander card found in many different decks there, including Atraxa Praetor's Voice and Grand Unifier. You also see this in Urtat Remnant of Memnarch, and it is a good upgrade to Corrupting Influence, plus it's in a lot of new builds around Ixal Sign of Atraxa. Greensleeves Morrow Sorcerer. This is one of the Dominaria United Eternal cards. It goes up $3.16 this week to $25. This has seen a good amount of commander play since it came out. It is in some different builds, including Omnith Locus of Creation. Grindstone from Tempest up $4 this week to $43.60. This is moving up because of that new Legacy blue 8-cast Painter deck that I talked about earlier. It also gets a little commander play, typically in decks that also contain Painter's Servant. Mana Crypt, the Eternal Masters copy up 250 to 207.12. The original media promo book giveaway copy up 540 this week to 336.59. This is in a lot of vintage builds, including Esper Tinker. It's also a big commander card in a lot of decks, including Atraxa Praetor's Voice again. And it's in builds around new cards too, like Urtat Remnant of Memnarch and Elish Norn Mother of Machines, for example. And yeah, this was another card mentioned in that Command Zone podcast video about Commander staples that are not worth their price. Plus it was mentioned in a Nitpicking Nerds video this week too. Reanimate, this time the Arch Enemy copy is jumping. It's up $5.70 to $22.07. It has been hot because it is found in those updated Legacy Reanimator decks with a Drechsler Grand Unifier. It's also found in Legacy Death Shadow too, and it's in a lot of different Commander decks. Sidar Kondo of Jamura. This is from Commander 2016. This copy only comes in foil. It goes up $7.54 this week to $17.30. And this is moving because it is another good upgrade to the Corrupting Influence Commander deck, and it's in new builds around Ixal and Vishgraz. Underground Sea from Revised. This goes up $7.76 this week to $765.51. Now, these revised dual lands are still very turbulent. They've been up and down ever since the 30th Anniversary Edition announcement. Even though recently they've been trending up generally, most of them are moving down this week. Tropical Island is pretty stable, and of course this one's moving up. The other 8 are seeing decent losses, and if you want to see just how much they're losing value, or which other cards are losing value this week, check out the series of shorts I put out throughout the weekend. All that information is there. As for gameplay, of course these original dual lands are highly played in any format where they're legal. And incidentally, these original duels were also mentioned in that Command Zone podcast video about Commander staples that are just not worth their price. And this card was in that video too, Wheel of Fortune from Revised. It goes up $9.95 to $332.49. This has also had its ups and downs since the 30th anniversary announcement occurred. It is another very expensive card from Revised. Solid Commander card in a variety of builds though. Oh, Sliver Queen is back again. This goes up $11.75 to $383. This reserve list legendary Sliver continues to jump. It is a good Sliver commander, and in the 99 of a lot of Sliver builds too in that format. Of course, it's hot now because we found out recently that one of the upcoming Commander Masters commander decks is called Sliver Swarm. A Drechsler Praetor's Voice. This is the one from Commander Anthology Volume 2. This one only comes in foil. It goes up $14.31 this week to $89.99. Alright, so this is a little bit of a fluke, an anomaly if you will, because the Commander 2016 copy is still dropping quite a bit. The Double Masters copy relatively stable this week though. And we did see all these Atraxes drop in value once we found out not too long ago that the card was being reprinted in the Multiverse Legends subset in March of the Machine. This week though, this particular copy, a little hard to find online in good condition, jumps back up. There are some higher asking prices out there for it. We'll have to see where these cards even out prior to the release of March of the Machine and then what happens after the release of March of the Machine. But like we've been talking throughout the video, when it comes to gameplay, Phyrexia All Will Be One really pushed the Atraxa Praetor's Voice builds. And you also see this in the 99 and some builds in the Commander format as well, including Atraxa Grand Unifier and Urtat Remnant of Memnarch. And our last card today is Gaia's Cradle from Urza Saga. This goes up $45.97 to $924.99. This does continue to rebound after some losses that occurred in 2022. You might remember when this card was easily over $1,000. It came down quite a bit. Now though, it's creeping back towards that $1,000 mark. In Legacy, it's in Elves and Maverick. Vintage, you see this in Hogak-Vine. And it's also in a variety of commander decks like Vorinclex Monstrous Raider and Urtat Remnant of Memnarch, for example. Plus, this did get a Command Zone podcast mention this week as well, which could have brought a little more attention to it. That is going to do it for this episode of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. And like I said earlier in the video, we also put out the shorts throughout the weekend, so if you want to know which cards are going down in value, check those out. Until next time though, hey, stay safe out there. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.